Imagine leaving everything behind for paradise, a place with no racism, no poverty, no war, just equality and hope. Now imagine that paradise is a lie. On November 18, 1978, over 900 people discovered this truth in the most tragic way possible. This is the story of Jonestown, how a dream of utopia became one of the darkest chapters in modern history, and why understanding it matters now more than ever. Jim Jones wasn't born a villain, he was born a showman. Growing up in 1930s Indiana during the Great Depression, young Jim discovered something powerful. He could captivate an audience. While other kids played baseball, Jones practiced preaching, experimenting with words that could move people emotionally. By his teenage years, he had found his calling, not just religion, but influence itself. In the 1950s, Jones did something remarkable for its time. He founded the People's Temple, a fully integrated church in an America still divided by segregation. Think about that for a moment. While much of the country enforced separate but equal, Jones welcomed everyone. He preached racial equality, fed the hungry, and provided health care to those who couldn't afford it. To the outside world, he looked like a civil rights hero. To his followers, he was a savior. Thousands joined his movement. Single mothers found community. Elderly people found purpose. Those rejected by society found acceptance. Jones didn't just offer religion, he offered belonging. And that's what made him so dangerous. Here's where things get disturbing. Jones understood something psychologists now study extensively. People crave certainty in uncertain times. He exploited this brilliantly. He staged miracles. Members would fake illnesses, and Jones would dramatically heal them, building his reputation as someone with supernatural powers. He demanded loyalty tests, asking members to prove their devotion through increasingly extreme acts. Those who questioned him were publicly humiliated. Slowly, methodically, he isolated his followers from the outside world. Members signed over their paychecks, they gave him their homes. Some even surrendered custody of their families. Jones wrapped these demands in the language of revolution and community. But what he was really building was a cage. Former members later described an environment of constant fear, where leaving meant losing everything: your family, your friends, your entire support system. By the mid-1970s, Jones had built an empire worth millions in California. He had political connections, media attention, and a growing following. But there was a problem. Journalists were starting to ask questions. Families of members were demanding answers. The spotlight that once empowered him now threatened to expose him. His solution? Start over somewhere remote, somewhere beyond reach. In 1977, Jones convinced over 1,000 followers to move to Guyana, a small country on the northern coast of South America. There, in the dense jungle, they would build Jonestown, a socialist paradise free from American corruption. The pitch was intoxicating. Imagine a fresh start, a community built on equality, a chance to escape the chaos of 1970s America. Photos from early Jonestown showed smiling families, people working together, gardens growing. It looked like the dream was real. But dreams can become nightmares quickly when you're 3,000 miles from home with no way out. Reality in Jonestown was nothing like the promise. The housing was cramped and poorly built. Food rations were inadequate. Rice and gravy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The work was exhausting, often lasting from dawn until long after dark. Medical care was minimal despite the tropical diseases surrounding them. And everywhere, there was Jones's voice. Loudspeakers broadcast his sermons 24/7, filling the jungle with paranoid warnings about enemies, government conspiracies, and the dangers of the outside world. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Passports were locked away. Letters home were censored or never sent. What was supposed to be paradise had become an open-air prison. But leaving wasn't an option anymore. You were surrounded by jungle, miles from civilization, with no money, no documents, and no allies. Many people realized they'd made a terrible mistake. But by then, it was too late. Back in the United States, desperate families were pleading for help. Their loved ones' letters had stopped. Phone calls went unanswered. Something was clearly wrong. Congressman Leo Ryan of California decided to investigate personally. In November 1978, he flew to Guyana with journalists and concerned family members. This was unprecedented. A sitting U.S. congressman traveling into the jungle to investigate American citizens. At first, Jonestown put on a show. There was a welcoming celebration with music and dancing. Members gave testimonials about how happy they were. But Ryan was observant. He noticed the armed guards. He saw the fear in people's eyes. And then, during a gathering, someone slipped him a note. "Help us get out of here." That note changed everything. Within hours, more than a dozen people quietly asked to leave with Ryan. For Jones, this was the ultimate betrayal. His control was slipping, and the world was watching. On November 18th, Ryan's group, now including defectors, headed to the nearby Port Kaituma airstrip. The tension was overwhelming. Jones knew if these people reached America and told their stories, everything would unravel. As the group prepared to board small planes, Temple loyalists arrived in a tractor trailer. They were armed. What happened next was captured on film by NBC cameraman Bob Brown, whose camera kept rolling even as events turned tragic. Congressman Ryan and 4 others lost their lives on that airstrip. Several more were wounded. Survivors escaped into the jungle, not knowing what awaited them back at Jonestown. Back at the settlement, Jones knew time had run out. He gathered everyone in the central pavilion and made an announcement that still chills historians today. The congressman's death meant the military would arrive soon, he claimed. Enemies were closing in. There was only one way to maintain dignity and control. They would all die together in what he called revolutionary suicide. Large vats of fruit-flavored drink had been prepared, mixed with cyanide and sedatives. What happened over the next hours remains one of the most disturbing events in modern history. Many complied, believing Jones's assurances that this was the only escape from torture by their enemies. Others were forced. Armed guards ensured no one could flee. Over 900 people died that day. Jones himself died from a gunshot wound. When Guyanese and American forces arrived days later, the scene defied comprehension. The images from Jonestown became some of the most shocking photographs of the 20th century. A stark reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked and critical thinking is abandoned. The phrase, "drinking the Kool-Aid," entered our language as a warning about blind obedience. But this phrase actually misses the truth of what happened. Most people at Jonestown didn't willingly embrace death. They were manipulated, coerced, or forced. This wasn't mass suicide. It was mass murder orchestrated by one man's paranoia. For those who survived, whether they escaped before the end or made it out of the jungle that terrible day, the trauma continues. Many lost their entire families. Some struggle with survivors' guilt, wondering why they lived when so many others didn't. But survivors have also become educators, sharing their stories to prevent future tragedies. They remind us that the people who joined the People's Temple weren't gullible or stupid. They were normal people searching for community and purpose who encountered a master manipulator. Jim Jones promised paradise. He offered community, purpose, and escape from an unfair world. What he delivered was tragedy on an unimaginable scale. But perhaps the most important lesson from Jonestown isn't about Jim Jones at all. It's about us. It's about understanding our own vulnerabilities, recognizing manipulation, and protecting our ability to think critically even when we desperately want to believe. It's about valuing questions over blind faith and community over control. The jungle has reclaimed Jonestown. Nature has covered the buildings and pathways, but the lessons remain as relevant as ever. In an age of social media echo chambers, charismatic influencers, and polarized communities, the story of Jonestown serves as a stark reminder. Paradise promised by someone demanding everything from you is no paradise at all.